Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Flipgrid featured webinar all about family engagement. And we are so excited to have our friends and partners at Wonderopolis on with us to talk about all things family engagement. So we'll take a moment to have everyone introduce themselves, and we'll get started with our great conversation. We'll start with John.
Yay! So happy to be here, Jornay. Always glad to hang out with my Flipgrid friends. So I'm John McLeod. I'm the senior manager over Wonderopolis. I've been there for years. I am a former middle school English teacher and also a dad of 4 kids, which sometimes feels like 40 kids, but I love it. And super excited tonight to talk about family engagement.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kendra Smiley, and I am the Statewide Family Engagement Center Director here in Phoenix, Arizona. I am a mom of a daughter who is in college. It's been the proudest opportunity I've had to raise her, so I'm excited about the discussion today about how to engage families. Prior to working for NCFL, I was a preschool teacher, and then I worked for a nonprofit overseeing some family engagement programs. I'm just excited to be a part of this platform tonight and learn from everybody and see what's happening across all of our sites.
Ms. Kristen Whitaker. I am a family engagement specialist at the NCFL, the National Centers for Families Learning. I've been with them for about a year and a half. Prior to NCFL, I was a high school history teacher in Washington, D.C. for about 10 years, during which I won the 2015 National Toyota Family Teacher of the Year Award, which started my relationship with NCFL. And I'm super excited today to be here and talk about family engagement. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. My parents were extremely engaged before family engagement was a thing. I thought it was just nosiness, but after a while, I learned that it was really the best thing for me. And I just want every kid and family to have the same experience that I had.
Hey everyone, my name is Leticia Citizen, and I am an I-4 coach at Hawthorne School in Beverly Hills Unified School District here in California. This is my 21st year teaching as an educator, my 3rd year as a coach, but I have taught kindergarten for 2 years, 1st grade for 7, and then 5th grade, oh my God, for 9 years. And in the classroom and out of the classroom, I am all about family engagement. I have 4 kids of my own, 3 who are in college and 1 in high school. And I think it was Kendra or Christine that said, like, being nosy or being engaged in my children's lives is always been very important, because that's what I learned from my parents. And I tried to stress that as well when I was in the classroom with my kids, and making sure that with my students, their guardians are heavily involved in what's going on, because it is a partnership. And so I'm excited to talk about that and learn from others as we're on this broadcast.
And hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Jornay Armand. I am Head of Educator Innovation at Flipgrid. And for me, I have 2 daughters, and they are my world. And so really being involved with them in their learning is top notch for me. But also as an educator for over 17 years, I realized the importance of the connection between home and school, and how to really foster that love of learning for students that goes beyond the classroom and back into the home to really make the family successful. So we are super excited, because if you did not know, Wonderopolis is one of Flipgrid's partners. And we've been having discussions over time of how we can truly build strong and successful families. So to really kind of kick off the conversation, I know many of you have so many different ideas when it comes to family engagement, but to kick us off, there's truly a difference between what students do at home sometimes versus what they do at school. So why do you guys really feel that family engagement is important within the school setting itself?
We all shouldn't talk at once.
Go ahead, Kendra.
No, you go ahead, Kristen. I'm good.
Okay. So for me, family engagement is truly the foundation of equitable education. I like to think of education as part of the customer service industry, if you will, with our customers being students, families, and the community. So to have the best outcomes, the best client reviews, reach our goals, things like that, we need to know what they need in order to best serve them. It's impossible to do that without engaging the families. And engaging families is also a way that everyone has access to all the information. I have to ask myself, how can we engage our families if we're not communicating in ways that they can understand? So part of family engagement, a big part to me, is also language justice. Is important in engaging families, and they have a variety of two-way communications, not just sending home flyers. You want to receive information back. So to me, if we're going to have a true equitable education, it's impossible to do without having engaging the families.
And I'd be happy to piggyback on what Kristen was saying as well, because I feel like oftentimes, as big organizations or small, we feel like we have the solution. But one of the things that really motivated me and really excited me about being a part of NCFL and the family literacy model is it's all parent goal driven. And so we're not prescribing, they're telling us what they need. And so I think in order to really have their voices be heard and feel empowered, it not only gives them the confidence, but they're then that role model for their child. And so it's that continuum of being able to be that strong, independent, confident person to help their children, get on the right path for success.
For me, when I did have my own class, I felt that it was really important that getting the parents involved, or the guardians, whoever was taking care of the child at that time, I felt it was important so that way we could align our goals, right? Making sure that we are on the same page, and understanding, in where I taught for 16 years, parents had to shuffle how they were going to handle their time. So a lot of times parents worked a lot, and that was something that I had to recognize and understand, and really even having conversations with teachers at my school to say that, we wanted to be careful about labeling a parent as an absent parent or not being involved in their child's life, and understanding that their priorities are are organized differently. And so like, even if we don't see them or we're not hearing or we don't hear from them enough, that I felt like it was my duty to like come up with different ways. So like what Kristen said, like not just having that one way communication where I'm just sending papers home and expecting that every parent is going to read it, but like allowing for there to be a variety of ways that I'm going to communicate and engage with parents. So I was that teacher that like gave out my number. I was that teacher that like, had a website and sent home papers and, called and used Class Dojo, whatever means I could use, because I knew that as long as it reached one parent in that way, that I was going to make sure that I kept that line of communication, because I wanted it to be a partnership, and I wanted to make sure that like goals that we were working on at school, or even if parents had certain goals at home, that we could also embed those in what we're doing at school. So that way we're doing this together and make it quite successful for the student as much as possible.
That's so good. I'm realizing I have the least amount of teaching experience on this panel. So I think I was invited here as like what not to do, probably from my experience. But I didn't understand that at all as a teacher. Like I just sort of had the perspective of, the parents kind of need to help me do what I'm doing here in the classroom. And it really wasn't until almost the end of the time I was in the classroom where I started to, like you're saying, Leticia, like see it as a two-way conversation of like, they have a lot to teach me and a lot to tell me about their child. I remember a teacher I worked with saying like, parents are sending their babies to you. Like these are, you might see them as this kid's kind of challenging, or this kid isn't motivated, or this kid just finishes everything early and gets on my nerves. But like to put yourselves back in the shoes of the parent, to be like, I want the absolute best education for my child. And how am I as the teacher coming alongside that parent? And like Kendra, like you were saying, like really empowering that parent or that caregiver to see their role is so critical, because there really isn't another adult influence in their life that's going to match, what that parent or caregiver is going to do. So it was too late for me, but hopefully it's not too late for for the rest of you out there.
Oh, John, it's never too late.
Okay,
and I think you brought up a really good point, because, I remember my first teaching experience. I didn't have kids at the time. And once I had my own children, I thought about things in such different ways. And Kristen, you brought up something I thought was really important. It was this intersectionality when it came to just justice in general. And so, as educators, we are there to provide learning experiences for students, but then so much more. So you mentioned language justice, and really making sure that there's two-way conversations, not just giving, what you want parents to do, but what do parents want also from us as educators, and what do they need in order to be successful as families? So with that being said, I have like so many thoughts just kind of roaming through my mind. And I know engagement looks different for every family. Just because a family is not showing up at school for every event does not necessarily mean they're not an engaged family or engaged parents. So could you talk a little bit about maybe some different ways that, you can truly involve families in that engagement within the school setting?
I can definitely speak to that. First, I do want to comment to John, because believe you me, my very first year of teaching, I was like, what you want me to do? My school started with home visits, and that's how we started engaging families. And I'm like, okay, you want me to figure out lesson planning and grading papers, and now you want me to do home visits as well. And so I was a resistant teacher. And then I tried a home visit, and I had this kid, I will not say his name, but the kind where you know the type, the reputation precedes the kid, and everybody's looking at your schedule like, ooh, you have so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, geez. And so I already had in my mind, like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm not going to know what's going to happen. And I invited his family to do a home visit, and, lo and behold, they invited me over for dinner, and we had a great conversation. I learned so much about him as a person and not just as a student. Him or her, let's say, I don't want to give any clues. those students who might be watching. And the very next day, when said kid came in with the normal attitude, I was ready. I asked him about something personal and was able to, going back to kind of speaking his language, I was able to connect with him or her. It's all right. I gave it away by now. It's him. I was able to connect and let him know that I saw him and value him as a person, not just as a student in my. All right, I won't name the class then. I can't narrow it down. In one of my history classes. So, and then I found out like, I could develop this personal relationship and speak their language. Not necessarily, I can only speak English. I tried so hard. Sorry to my Spanish teachers, my various Spanish teachers. I tried, couldn't do it. But I would learn them and see how they like to communicate. And then I can see what they needed from me. And then I had an easy 10 years of teaching when I found that. So when I mean language justice and two-way communication, we have to get out of the status quo. I'm just going to send a flyer home. It's on the parent to read the flyer. We don't know if that flyer makes it there. We don't know if it's in whatever language they speak. We don't know reading levels. We don't know anything. And we expect them to come to the table with just that one fake invitation that we've sent them. So it goes, if we want to, hit this thing about equitable education, we have to make sure we're attacking it on all fronts.
Kristen, you're absolutely right. Like I said, for 16 years, I worked in Pasadena, and I worked at a school that we had a high volume of students who their second language was Spanish, or I should say their first language was Spanish. But then I started to learn that for a lot of them, their first language was actually English, and then they were making Spanish their second language so much that I remember conference time, and conference time is always like that double-edged sword, right? Like I love to hate it because like I had 36 kids, and so I had to like plan for all 36, but I loved it because that's where I felt like I was going to truly learn so much more about my families, right? So I tried to do that definitely at back to school night, where especially like once we started to, high volume with tech, I love using Nearpod to go ahead and like engage families and have them like draw their family and tell me like what skills they have and how they wanted to like, what expectations they have for me, what expectations do they have for their child's learning, but also about like what skills do you have that you want to come in and like share with our class. But conference time was so important because I felt like I was going to really truly learn so much more about my families. And that's usually when I found out that like a lot of my students were trying not to speak Spanish anymore because they felt like in school that the only way that they were going to be successful is to speak English. And so I always looked forward to that because it was my time to sit down with the parent and the child and say, no, you need to continue to speak your home language. And even if we send home information in English, or if, we try to make sure that we send it home in Spanish as well, but that like you can sit there with your parent and then like read it to them and talk to them. And I would have kids who would say like, but she doesn't even understand English and she doesn't understand this. And I'm like, but you get to sit down now and also be the teacher. And not only do you get to show off your work and like use your voice in doing this, but now you get to do that with your parent and get feedback from them. So, definitely I always felt like with my students like that how they were trying to dismiss that language because for some reason they were internalizing it as like this was bad and they didn't want it anymore, and it was almost like a form of shame for themselves, and then getting the parent and the child to sit there together and say like, no, this is still important, and here are the ways and here are the skills that you can do this, that way you can still engage your parent and they can still learn from you and you can learn from them. I always felt that was like really important for me to do that with them.
I'm sitting here chuckling because as Kristen was talking about experience with home visitation, it reminded me when I very first started teaching, I would go into the home of preschoolers. And as you all can imagine, they tell you everything. and there's no secrets. So, and I won't go into all the stories that I heard, but I used to keep a running log of things that kids would tell me. And then the next time I'd see their parents, I'd be like, because you find out everything. But anyway, with that being said, the whole point I think that I really liked about doing home visitation, when Kristen was talking about it, is you get to see how that parent interacts with that child. And so, as we all know, our kids are different than when they're with other people. I remember getting reports of my daughter, like, she's the first one that cleans up. She's the first one that turns in her work. I'm like, who are you talking about? This is not my child. But I guess, John, just so you know, with 4, that's how you want it. You want them to behave like that in public and do whatever they're going to do in private. But anyway, when I think about the work that we're doing here in Arizona and how we're really engaging parents, is that opportunity through the family literacy model where they get to spend time in their child's classroom through pack time. And they're seeing how the parent is working with the child. They're seeing, or excuse me, how the teacher's working with the child. They're not a second set of hands. They're not a volunteer. They're really learning alongside their child. So oftentimes I think, the feedback that we've gotten from teachers, initially it was kind of like, I don't know if I want someone's parent in my classroom. But now we have other schools that are like, I want to do that program in my classroom because I'm seeing that our kids are, they're paying attention more. They're actually doing their homework because their parents understand what it is that is being expected of them. Now, when I think about me as a parent, I was what every family and friend member would say. I was the helicopter mom, meaning that I taught where my daughter went to school till she was in 3rd grade, until my very wise father said, you need to cut the cord, honey. And it was devastating. I thought, she's going to be so sad if I leave. But it was the best thing. But that's a whole other conversation. But I do feel like the more opportunities that we have for parents to really see what's happening in the classroom, it just brings that connection from school to home and makes it more relatable for them. One other point I wanted to make is, I remember as a teacher, a coworker telling me, make sure that every time a parent picks up the child, you say something positive. You say, oh, I noticed today that little Johnny helped clean up all of Kristen's toys. Because when you have to have those hard conversations about things that aren't going so well, they don't feel like you're attacking their child. They feel like you are truly their partner in helping their child be successful. So I'll stop now.
Yeah. No, that was great. That reminds me of, I got the same advice actually, Kendra, and from parent-teacher conferences. Once I started doing that, it was like my favorite thing, because just to see, now some kids it was a little more challenging to come up with something, like, oh, they really, stay in their seat most of the time, or whatever. But you could always find something for every kid, and then just to see like the parent's face light up when you told them that, or the grandmother or whoever brought them, and just because they care, they love that child so much, and so sometimes they're kind of on the defense, ready to hear the negative stuff. And so when you bring when you really look for the positive stuff too, it really, that was always it was eye-opening for me, and then helped me understand like how powerful that is to just as much as we want to critique and give feedback, we want to make sure we're giving a lot of positive feedback too. I'm curious too. I mean, as I listen to each of you talk, I'm thinking, this year has changed so many things for parents and for caregivers at home, and I'm thinking, again, I can only speak from my perspective as a parent. Starting in March, I understood pretty well what my kids were learning all of a sudden, because I was trying to figure out the math that my 3rd grader was doing and had no idea how to keep up with it. And so it was very eye-opening for me at first, but then it was also a great opportunity to really go, well, I don't know what she's doing most of the time during the day, but now I have a front row seat to what she's doing. I can ask her follow-up questions. I know where she needs a little bit of extra help. So I'm just wondering, I don't mean to hijack the question here, but how do you think families are adjusting, and what do you think we can suggest for them as they're like navigating kind of these new hybrid distance model schools in some places?
So you're absolutely right, John. Like it really, right? It like puts school in home now. Like before it was like school was one place and you could like bring in certain information. Like the kid was gonna determine what information they were gonna share with home, right? And then as well as what like the correspondence with the teacher, like we're only gonna like share so much stuff. Well, now like school is in home. There's no separating the two. And so what we've been doing at my school, because I am the coach there, I've been hosting with my IT partner along with like my admin, where we're like hosting different times where we're inviting parents to just come for our K2, we use iPads, and 3-5, we use laptops. So with the K2, I'll host like an iPad session where they could just come and ask questions, and we'll like do it for like an hour. And so we'll like try to host those. And we did that last spring, and we did that right away once school started, where, I was able to like share my screen and walk them through like a couple of steps and then just leave it open for questions. And then we did that like several times. So that's one thing. We also have a chat that's set up on, we only have 4 schools in our district. So 2 K5s, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. And so on each web page for the school, we have a chat button that's for parents, students, and teachers to use as well. And that chat for that school actually goes to the coach and the IT for that school. And so we like are on the chat all day. Like we get a notification and we can go in and right away and chat with, like I said, with the parent, with the student, or with the teacher. And if they need more one-on-one, or if we need to like have like a separate Zoom so we can share screens, like we have that as well, where parents have like a direct communication, not only with the teacher, but they know that they can reach out to myself or to my IT partners. That way we can help and walk them through, because we're trying to help teachers out as much as we can. So that's one way that we're trying to like help with that process, as well as like hosting, like I said, like little mini sessions throughout the year, where we try to host it at different times, where we're just like I said, either it's just an open question thing, or I say like, oh, today we're going to talk about Seesaw. Today we're going to talk about Google Classroom, the how-tos, come join us. So we're doing those kinds of things.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I see a recurring theme in the conversations that we're having, and it's inclusion. When families feel welcomed, but also supported, then they're also more invested, right? In, whatever it is that's happening with their child, whether it's, the learning phase, maybe it's the social phase. And so, as you were talking, Leticia, I shared with you guys before we even started my daughter's experience. She's on to her 3rd teacher this school year, since August. So it's been very challenging for my youngest, but my oldest has been thriving, in the virtual environment. And so knowing that every child in every classroom is going to be a little different in the ways that we can maybe provide that welcoming space for families. So Leticia mentioned they have an awesome chat button. I wish I could, post that, in a chat, but I know for sure there's lots of educators that have been also using Flipgrid as that means of sharing information and inviting families to maybe ask those questions in a moderated environment. So what other, thoughts do you guys have around, how to best support families in this environment that John brought up that has not been really traditional, at least for as long as education has been around, something very new. So what advice do you have maybe for schools and districts looking for ways to better support their families?
I could give a perspective, but maybe not necessarily from schools and districts, but for, I will have to say, one, I am probably the only person on the panel with no kids. So I'm coming from a strictly teacher kind of perspective here, and then a family engagement coach, but you had mentioned traditional education, and I think this is the time where we can start to challenge the notion of traditional education. There's the concept of funds of knowledge, using knowledge, cultural knowledge, especially that the families already have, to increase education and engagement. And so what I would encourage schools to encourage families to do is, sometimes, because this is extremely new and overwhelming for everyone, switching to a virtual world, is one, we need to give each other some grace in the process, and recognize that being at a computer all the time can be a little, can get you a little stir crazy. So what ways can we come up with to still provide education and maybe everyday activities? If you want a family to do something together, maybe suggesting cooking together, following a recipe and measuring things out, things like that, is a non-traditional way of getting to education, but there is math and everything involved, and it's something we can do. I know a lot of families that started gardens together. There's definitely botany, biology within that. There's a science of that. I know I've tried gardening so many times, and it's not my ministry, let's just say. So I'm just, and my NFL coworkers know that I've been sharing about my attempts all summer long, and they remain just attempts. But my point is, now we have a time where we can challenge the status quo that has become education, what we've been doing for centuries. And we did not want to be in this situation, yet it has presented ourselves. So how can we think outside the box? How can we stir things up and try something new? What are the new innovative ways that we can encourage families to learn together, and then bring in the schools for that partnership? And maybe, they could come up with the plan that way, like kind of scratch everything and start co-designing. I know I have a friend who does Montessori schooling, and they're kind of thriving because they've been doing this kind of school home, almost non-traditional type learning model. So I'm challenging the idea of how can we maintain that status quo. What do you all think about that? I'm sorry, I didn't hijack the question again and turned it around.
I said a bad example. I'm sorry, I did, but I love it.
So I was going to say that, so when I was in the class, we did, because I loved using Wonderopolis, and so we did Wonder Wednesdays. And so one of the things, for that day for homework, they, if you all have checked out Wonderopolis and you do the Wonder of the Day, there's always the try it out. And this goes exactly what Kristen's saying, is this is where they get to do the non-traditional, I don't want to give you 5 problems from math. It is go home, talk today about what our wonder was, and then go to the try it out, take your parents to the try it out, and then choose one of those, do it together with your family. And at the time I would use Class Dojo. So they would have to take a picture or a video on Class Dojo, so that way it would come to me, and then I could see what they did that day with that wonder. And so trying to get my teachers now to do that, where it's I've got one 5th grade class that does it, and it's all about try those wonders, because it's always something that they get to do together as a family, and they get to learn something new, right? It has to do with the wonder and really connecting it that way. So that was always and I'm still a big fan of that, of go to those wonders, try out one of those, and then share about it, post it somewhere, so that way we can all see what you did.
Yeah, that's my favorite part too, Leticia. John knows that, because I talk about it all the time.
I love it so much.
Kristen said, create that opportunity to co-design with families. And as Leticia mentioned, Wonderopolis has the Wonder of the Day, but also the Try It Out section. So I'm going to share that right now. And John, if you would like to talk us through a wonder and where educators and families can find these awesome try it out activities to truly not only benefit the learning for the student, but also that connection between the student and their families, fostering communication as well as so many other skills that would be great for them now and also future, right, in life. So here's today's wonder, right? Who's Leonidas?
Yeah, absolutely. So every weekday we publish a new wonder, and so we love asking questions, and a lot of times we are asking questions that maybe you have never thought about, like maybe you've never heard of Leonidas, I think is how you say his name. You have no idea who this is. You can probably guess from the images. It's some sort of maybe Greek or Roman type person, but you can explore that question through, there's a video, there's an image gallery, and at the heart of this, as you probably caught on here, Wonderopolis is just one of the digital properties from the National Center for Families Learning, which is a literacy organization. So the heart of this is a nonfiction article, which again, I will testify as a former language arts teacher, it's really hard to find like interesting nonfiction texts. So we strive to be as curious and bizarre and interesting as possible by asking all kinds of questions, or really just asking the questions that students and learners are already asking. So you can see within there, there's vocabulary pulled out to the side. So it's a great way to be learning some new vocabulary in context. And you can take a little quiz there too, which is a fun way to kind of practice some of these new words. There's also just a pretty basic reading comprehension quiz. Again, it's totally optional, but it's a great resource just to sort of gauge, if you're getting the main idea. And then, as you mentioned, Leticia, you totally stole my thunder, and I couldn't be more delighted that you did, because it was so
I'm so
true,
sorry.
because I know how much you love it. No, you make my job so easy. I don't have to talk as much. But the try it out section is at the bottom of every single wonder of the day. And it's really specifically designed to be these kinds of activities that you would do with your family. So even though, yes, Wonderopolis, it works awesome in the classroom, it works tremendously well there, you can do these as extensions for your learners, but we hope that they're going to be something that, if this topic is really interesting, here's an idea you could do with your family. You could spend 5 minutes or 50 minutes, however much time you have, exploring this a little bit more. And I know for my kids, one of the ones we explored was what country has the most castles. So we did that wonder of the day. And then the try it out was like designing your own castle. And my two oldest kids were like, for like an hour, like just like ferociously designing the different rooms. And like, it really kind of turned into this cool like engineering sort of lesson that they were like 100% engaged in. And so it was really neat to see that in, first of all, my own kids, like what I work with every day. But it just shows the power of when you can really like capture that spark and it ignites that curiosity, then learning doesn't feel like work anymore. And you're hungry to learn more and to explore more. So I know that's happening for learners all over the world. So that's really our heart's goal for Wonderopolis, is just spark that curiosity and then lead to deeper learning, and then make it something where the family members can be involved in that conversation too, and involved in that learning.
And John, these articles are short, high interest articles, and free. So I found Wonderopolis and was actually reading them with my daughters for bedtime. So it was a great way to wonder, learn something new together. And that was the cool thing about it. I didn't know a lot of these things too. So we were learning side by side. And as you mentioned, those try it out. So what a wonderful way, if you're looking to do something at night or on the weekend with your family, these are ready to go activities with resources and links to explore maybe things that you never really thought about, maybe going on a nature walk, to maybe find certain shapes, or at least this one here, you can create your own Greek shield. I can see some families doing their own, battles with their shields. What a fun way to really bring in learning and creativity. Kendra, I know you are ready to say something really cool and interesting.
So I learned about Wonderopolis long before I worked for NCFL, and I was a huge advocate right from the get-go, because as a single mom, that was that helicopter mom that was at my child's school, as you can imagine, every time I would ask a question, Mom, are you trying to teach me something? Mom, are you trying to teach me something? And so what I love so much about Wonderopolis is and it piggybacks on what Kristen and Letitia said. It's that opportunity for learning that doesn't feel forced. It's natural curiosity. It's things that kids ask that the questions are driven by, those participants that are engaged in Wonderopolis. And I think it just really helps provide that opportunity for a parent that might be struggling with trying to engage their child or struggling with how to start a conversation, because I think most learning happens in those natural opportunities, those teachable moments. So I feel like, where was Wonderopolis 15 years ago when my daughter, or why didn't I know about it? But I do think, especially here in Arizona, with the opportunity that we have shared this with our school districts, teachers are like, this is a great way to even start the day, to get our kids, curious and thinking. And when the parents have that opportunity in the classroom and they're hearing that, that gives them the opportunity to start having those continued conversations that were happening in the classroom at home. Again, bridging what's happening at school at home, which then is building that whole relationship. So as John knows, like, as soon as I started with NCFL, like, my job wasn't to promote it, but I am like, every person I talk to, I'm like, but first, forget about what I do full time. Have you heard of Wonderopolis?
I know, we need to start paying you.
Look, if everybody gets to share a Wonderopolis story, then I think I get to go next. And as always, my story is different because I don't have any kids, but John can tell you I will run to his office all the time about fascinating wonders of the day. And I can't remember who exactly said something about 40 to 50 minutes. If you're anything like me, you might want to set aside 2 hours. I have gone down so many Wonderopolis rabbit holes. It was, my goodness, this one had me engaged for like hours about like clay underground houses somewhere, to the point where I think I sent it to my mom, like, yo, I think I might move here. And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, I know. So I say all that to say that it's wonderful for kids, but just regular adults, there's just something interesting and fantastic about Wonderopolis. So, give it to tell your kids about it, great, but there are some adults out there like me who are nerds for life and enjoy going down the Wonderopolis rabbit hole. I didn't know that much about it when I was in the classroom, but now since joining the NCFL team, I have been a huge fan of Wonderopolis. So I echo everything that was said there. And again, another way to take learning outside of the classroom, make it a more engaging thing. I can imagine if I was using it in my classroom, it'll be an extension exercise. Take one of the wonders we did that week and elaborate on it that weekend, take it to the next step, try it out. And then, because I taught high school, so I had to dangle extra credit whenever I could. I would be like, oh, you want to graduate? Do you want to graduate? So, I could push it in there on them. So, there's so many tools and resources. And again, I feel like I'm hijacking because I know we're supposed to talk about resources. And easy transition to our resources part. And my first one was going to be Wonderopolis. So since y'all stole that from under me, another one I was going to say, I don't know if any you all are familiar, but the Smithsonian website is doing these virtual field trips.
Yep.
It's amazing. So you can log on and go to a lot of the different museums. I'm spoiled because I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., moved back. All my life been going to the museums. I really didn't know until I moved out of DC and went to college that museums everywhere weren't free. Talk about being spoiled. In zoos, I thought a zoo everywhere was free. It is not. With the Smithsonian virtual field trips, it is right now. And there's so many exhibits, so many things to see. So in addition to Wonderopolis, or that could be an extension to Wonderopolis, learn something about, I'm going to totally mess up the name of the guy today. John, take it. What was the guy today?
Yeah, that guy.
That cool guy. And see if we can find a link to it in the Smithsonian archive somewhere and, take it further. So there's so many things that we can do to take this education seamlessly from the classroom to the home.
Yeah, and I'll get a butt in real quick too and say, I love hearing Kristen talk about Wonderopolis, but one of the things I've just noticed, again, like as a parent now too, it's really interesting to see this, but like my oldest daughter last year, her teacher was super fan of Flipgrid, really using it a lot, which is so fun. And then her teacher this year like hadn't used it and then used it for the first time. And my daughter Juliet was like, oh, cool. So she did like the first video and then like other kids kind of like timidly did theirs. And then she like replied and like she was already like knew how to use it really well. And I think kind of inspired some of the other kids to record more videos and stuff. And so, it's never been more challenging to stay connected. And I think, especially for kids too, man, it's just, they're not used to the screen stuff as much maybe as we are as adults. And so having something like Flipgrid where kids can talk about what they're learning and they can interact with one another. I've just seen it on the faces of like my own children, like they just light up. And so it's such a great and like easy to use tool. It works so perfectly like as a 1-2 punch with Wonderopolis, because then you can talk about, that exciting thing that you just learned, that guy today, whatever his name was, right? You get to share that. So it's just, to me, we always say it's peanut butter and jelly. The Flipgrid and Wonderopolis go together so well.
So I'm so glad you said that, John. Like, perfect transition. We actually had one question I would love to address. So I'm going to hop back into that wonder of the day. So we had a question from about wonders in Spanish. So really, what's really cool is that Wonderopolis is supercharged in so many different ways. So John, do you want to share the awesome way that Wonderopolis is supercharged with the immersive reader?
Oh my goodness. It's a game changer, Jornay. It has absolutely changed the availability of our content. But if you click that little book icon underneath any Wonder of the Day question, where it says listen, it launches Immersive Reader, which does several. First and foremost, it's a read aloud feature. That worked really great for my first grader because the language is a little tough for him. So if you click the green button at the bottom, it reads aloud. You can also, there's some really great tools for like visual assistance or visual impairment, changing the contrast. There's a line focus too, but probably one of the most exciting at NCFL, the thing that we get most excited about are the language translation tools. So there's a picture dictionary, which is incredible because you can click on a word and it'll represent it in a picture, which is really helpful for language learners. And then in terms of translation, you have the option to, you can choose a target language, and then you can click on a word in both like the home language and the target language, or you can just drop the whole document right into that target language. And the read aloud feature still works. It reads it with the correct accent. So it's a really incredible tool from Microsoft. And the guy I talked to there loves to say, today is the worst it's ever going to be, because their team is constantly working on updating that, on making that, increasing the fidelity and making it better and better and better. And so it's amazing. We absolutely love being able to have that tool on every single Wonder of the Day, and just making our content really accessible for everybody. So yeah, Immersive Reader, 5 stars.
Yeah. And so in addition to Immersive Reader being inside of Wonderopolis, John mentioned Flipgrid. And so if you did not know, Wonderopolis is one of the partners with Flipgrid. And there's actually a Wonder of the Day that is launched every day right inside of Flipgrid. So the cool thing about this is not only can your students interact with that awesome wonder, but now with Flipgrid, the students will be able to have those conversations with each other, or you can even invite the families to have these conversations together and really grow that community for learning. Because just like Wonderopolis, learning never stops. Right. So it's not bound by a grade level. Anyone can read these wonders and learn, as Kristen had shared with us, that she gets into those rabbit holes as she starts wondering. So here's one on, do sunken ships have graveyards? Like, I'm wondering that now. And so you can access that wonder. As mentioned, everything inside of Flipgrid is also supercharged with the Microsoft Immersive Reader. And there's some other awesome features inside of here. So you'll notice Wonderopolis has their own partner page. And we didn't even mention this, John, but the logo is reminding me, this is Wonderopolis' 10th birthday. So happy birthday, Wonderopolis.
Yay.
So you'll notice on their partner page that, oh my goodness, there's so much to explore. So you can get connected with Wonderopolis on social media, find out all their popular topics that educators are using in the classroom, see these incredible collections that they've created. And I want to spotlight one collection, the Family Learning Collection. What an awesome way maybe to have a Flipgrid group for your families with these topics to engage in, like what makes a family, because all families are different. And what can children teach parents? Because, oh my goodness, I learn from my children all of the time. And guess where they're learning? On TikTok, on Snapchat. They're learning everywhere, and they're bringing it back to me. So these are incredible topics curated by Wonderopolis just for you to engage families. In addition to Wonderopolis, of course, inside of Discovery, we do have lots of other partners and educators who are building in topics. So what we've done at Flipgrid is created a collection, a family engagement collection for you. So inside of this collection, what you'll find is not only topics submitted by Wonderopolis to engage families, but also topics from educators and other partners, such as like, what is a family? Maybe learning about dyslexia and how you can conquer it from our friends at Made by Dyslexia. Nashara, she submitted one on student-led conferences. I know this is conference season for most schools. So this is once again, a really great way for students to share, celebrate, and showcase what they are doing in the classroom, and also maybe share those things that they might be struggling with, that they want their families to know ways that they can help them. And so you'll be able to see this is a wealth of resources. I love this. My name is the name story, right? Like everyone's name is so beautiful. And what a perfect way for children to really have that conversation with their families about maybe how they got their name. There may be an interesting story that they can tell. So truly encourage everyone to check out these incredible resources that are 1% free inside of Discovery. So Leticia, I know as a coach, you are working with educators every single day to ensure that students have the best learning experiences. So what is your advice to truly have educators inspire that love of learning beyond the classroom environment?
Oh, my go-to is always starting off with like Wonder Wednesdays. Go to Wonderopolis, have the students read. I mean, again, with the immersive reader, we don't necessarily have to be bound by the language barrier anymore, but starting out off with the students and then having them connect that to home. we have like spirit weeks. That's always one of our activities for Spirit Week. Choose a wonder with your family and then do the try it out. And like you said, go ahead and like create a Flipgrid topic so that way they can go ahead and share, and then they can see each other's and respond to each other. So that's always going to be my number one thing. Go to Wonderopolis, do those try it outs, connect the family that way, because it did wonders. Of course, I didn't mean to do that, but it did wonders when I was in the classroom. Like I was using Wonderopolis. Oh my God, it was like 2014, 2015 that I was using it. And that is always, always, always my number one go-to to people. Like when I hear someone say, I've never heard of one, I'm like, what? Let me show you. Let's do this now. Like, open it up. Let's go. And then when you say it's free, John will tell you, I can stand there all day long and like talk to people at conferences or talk anywhere about
You've done it. Yeah. It's great.
So Kristen and
I was going to say, can I piggyback off that answer?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so another cool thing about Wonderopolis that I don't know if we mentioned yet is in addition to looking up by the wonders of the day, you can also do a search for different wonders. Like, and I thought about that when you talked about them being in the collection. So when you want to inspire love for learning and beyond a classroom, when I was talking about like thinking outside the box, being creative and innovative, you can also use things that are happening today. Like my twin and her husband and kids are, they're the biggest space geeks, I'm gonna say. I didn't send them the link, so it's okay that I talk about them this way. They got me into being a space geek too. In the sense that recently Mars was just like the brightest red, and then it'll be in 2035, and then Jupiter and some other planets did a perfect triangle. So then I sent them these wonders, and then we had one with what's my favorite little astronaut, Melvin Leland, and yes. Wait, cut that part. No, I'm kidding. No. And so I was like, oh, I can't wait to share these with my nieces who are 2 and 4. But just goes to speak to that. In addition to like the things that we're doing in the classroom, we can really find everyday things that are happening and turn them into family learning moments, engaging moments. Like I said, they've been putting out a lot of, the space has been really entertaining these last couple of weeks. That coupled with, you can do searches for wonders if you want to expand on that. They have some on Mars, astronauts, all the planets, things like that. So now is the time again for us to challenge our thinking and to start learning again as families and have fun with it. I will also do that. Encourage you to make these lessons fun at home. Break away from the computer. Go outside and see if you can match some of those plants with some of the ones that are in Wonders of the Day. And spoiler alert, no, I have not been able to do it yet. But I'll get there.
Kristen, that made me think of something. So Wonders with Charlie has been a really special part of our site for the last year and a half or so. And he has been doing a live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And he's had the opportunity to interview 2 different people from Blue Origin, which is the space company from that Bezos owns. So one dude is a literal rocket scientist. And he talks about building these things called O'Neill cylinders, which are like they're cylinders, they're space stations that would like have like light, and there would be plants there. Kristen wouldn't be able to grow any, I guess, but there would be some plants there apparently. But it's just so amazing because they were talking about like, we're busy this week because of a launch. And I was thinking, like a product launch or something. Literal launch into space was what kept them from like replying to an email. So it's just amazing to learn about, all the incredible things that are happening on our planet right now, and the forward-thinking individuals that are out there. So Wonders with Charlie is also another really, really fun way to engage and just really kind of go outside, like Kristen said, go outside the box of like yes, there's articles and reading is good too, but sometimes it's really fun to engage, in the live chat with Charlie and kind of see what he's wondering about today. So, tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays for Wonders with Charlie, because he's always up to something interesting.
That's awesome. And, if you missed the live, once again, inside of Wonderopolis's partner page and Discovery, what you'll find is a collection for Wonders with Charlie. So lots of, once again, resources. Oh, I clicked into the wrong one, but lots of resources for you, your students, and families to explore. With that, John, do you want to close us out? I know it's Wonderopolis' birthday. Any fun things that educators can look forward to for the rest of this month?
Oh my goodness. It's been a crazy month. We can't believe we've celebrated 10 years already. Just one of the things I'm really excited about is we have the Wonderologist program. So if you're interested, follow us on Twitter or Instagram. You can find links to that. But we want to hear from you. We want to be going strong for another 10 years. So feedback from educators and families is really important to us about how we can continue to make Wonderopolis an absolutely amazing place to be, to wonder together as a community. So we're always interested in hearing from people. We need your questions. We get hundreds of them a day, but we need more. We want more questions. So submit all kinds of whatever questions you have on our site. There's a really easy way to do that. Just continue to nurture that curiosity, because I think if we can do that as adults and kind of model for learners, like, hey, we don't know everything. Like we're still curious about the world around us. It kind of gives kids permission to ask those questions and to be lifelong learners that are curious. So,
well, thank you, everyone. This was an incredible conversation. To everyone watching, never stop wondering and empower every voice.